Forward and Out has been made possible by the generous support of the following: The Loft, Lesbian and Gay Community Services Center; Choice Travel; Stephanie's Living Room;
Gay visibility is greater now than ever before, and the number of out people is steadily increasing. But all too often, even the most out members of our community will go right back into the closet when they go to work. And understandably so. Losing their jobs is a very real threat. Nevertheless, the workplace is changing. Gay, lesbian, and bisexual networking is well underway in corporate America. Intercompany groups which address the needs of our community in the workplace now exist. For those who are fortunate enough to work in such companies, being out on the job no longer threatens their livelihood. This is Forward and Out, and I'm Eileen Karn. Join me in welcoming Aggie Medich and Henry Rabinowitz, two members of NYNEX's GLCD, Gays and Lesbians for Corporate Diversity. Welcome. Thanks for coming on the show. I think it's going to be so fascinating to hear how gay issues have gotten some play in the corporate culture. Let's start with you, Aggie. What's your position at NYNEX, and how long have you been there?
I've been with NYNEX for 8 years. I'm a staff director in the legal department of the international branch, and I oversee corporate governance for a couple dozen of our international entities, as well as oversee export control compliance.
And how about you, Henry?
This is my 6th year at NYNEX. I'm a technical director in NYNEX's Science and Technology area, and work in the Network Planning and Engineering Systems Laboratory.
Great. You're both in Westchester then, in the Westchester area?
Yes, in the White Plains area.
Yeah, we work in White Plains. Okay.
Well, how did GLCD get started? Aggie, you know a little bit about the history.
Yes, GLCD began in the New England area in the 1990-1991 time frame. In 1991, down here in New York, Elizabeth Inson, who some of your viewers may know as former co-president of the Loft, started meeting independently with NYNEX representatives to represent to them issues of concern to gay and lesbian employees. In 1992, she started holding meetings with her friends, and that's how the New York chapter of GLCD was formed.
So prior to that, there was already one in New England?
There was one in New England, yes.
So that was sort of her point of inspiration?
Yes, absolutely.
Right. So that was January '93, and it was just a small group then, meeting informally?
It was a small group, meeting in people's homes. The first general meeting was held on company premises in April of 1993, and in May of in June of 1993 at Gay Pride, we had a NYNEX-funded Gay Pride banner.
So already in 6 months you had gone to the point of being very visible.
That's right.
With NYNEX's help. Right. We have a photo of that. This is the Gay Pride 1993. Yes, and there's the GLCD banner.
Designed by GLCD member Catherine Crawford.
Right, and paid for by NYNEX.
Right.
That's great. How many members did you have at the beginning?
Oh, we were a handful in the beginning, and now we're somewhere in between 100 and 125.
How did you get the word out? That must have been through the corporate communication channels and things like that, that you were acquainting people with the formation of the new group?
Yes, we needed to introduce ourselves to corporate entities, the human resources, the legal department, as well as to the communications people to get the word out that this group existed and to find out the parameters under which we would be operating. And I talk about a conspiracy of cooperation of the editors, various editors of the employee publications, who were very forthcoming in announcing the meetings and otherwise getting the word out, either through articles in the publications, or through getting out one-page announcements to various buildings.
The sort of electronic bulletin board too, where the meetings were announced?
Electronically, we actually were able to get an announcement on the voicemail system to cover a couple of hundred people in several buildings in the White Plains area. So that was, we were assisted through another NYNEX entity to do that.
Right. Were you involved at the beginning, Aggie?
Yes, I was. I was
you
at
knew
the
Liz
first few meetings.
Nilsson
Yes,
very
I
instrumental.
had heard about GLCD through a publication, actually, a NYNEX publication that listed the 11 diversity groups, including GLCD, and I contacted the EEO director to inquire about the group, and he directed me to Liz Nilsson. It was a one-person operation at that point.
Right. Good for Liz. How did you get involved, Henry?
Well, I heard, I saw some of the numerous company publications that had notices. So finally the message got through to me, and I just called up and went. I was very happy to see that somebody was taking the initiative to do the organizing.
Great. What sort of process was it to talk to management to get them to allow this as a diversity group?
In New York, we were very welcomed by various management groups, whether it was a human resource group or other groups, including the other diversity groups. New England had a much, much harder time than we did. They were not able to get out a telephone number that they had obtained at using their own resources. It took them quite a while to get an employee publication in New England to publish that number. In New York, the organization was ready for us. We were made to feel very much welcome.
There's actually a manager at the director level of corporate diversity, is that right?
That's right.
So that NYNEX has devoted an executive position to liaison with all the diversity groups, is that right?
Yes, that's right.
Who was it in those early months of starting up?
The director of managing diversity was Joe Anderson, and he was extremely helpful and supportive of this group.
Yeah, were there specific things that he was able to do to help you?
One thing that he did, the first thing that he did to help us was to fund a voicemail box for us so that we have a number, and that number, if I may say it, is 914-644-6887. And that is a confidential voicemail box that only GLCD has access to, and that has been instrumental in helping us get in touch with our constituents.
Right, right. How do you network with other groups, the diversity groups within NYNEX? Have they been helpful to you?
Yes.
You know, in as much as they usually represent minorities or other...
Yes. As I said, there were 11 diversity groups at NYNEX, and NYNEX really does have a culture which welcomes diversity. The other diversity groups, each and every one of them very early on offered to mentor us, to midwife us, to give us whatever assistance we needed, and we have taken them up on their offers of assistance, including incorporating us. We're an incorporated entity, soon to be a tax-free entity.
What's the name of some of the other diversity groups, just to give us a feeling for the sort of range of...
Disability Support Organization, the Veterans Advisory Board, which has been very helpful to us, Asian Focus Group, Minority Management Association, Association of Management Women, and I'm missing a few.
Hispanic
Support Organization.
Right. So all those diversity groups were able to sort of be your cheerleaders and your sort of mentor you in a way through... Right,
and physically materially how they were able to help us is to include us in meetings that they hold on a regular basis with and among themselves to sort out issues that are of interest to all of us, and by making us a part of that early on, that certainly helped our visibility.
Do you have a sense of your colleagues and your co-workers who are heterosexual, what their response has been, or has that gone a range of responses from the early days to now, or have you seen that change? Henry, maybe you could...
I think in general, somewhat indifference is the main reaction that I've gotten, I would say. I think in general, a support for the notion of diversity. The research labs where I work are an extremely diverse place. People are from all over the world. So I think people are comfortable with the notion that the company has to welcome cultural diversity.
Right.
And we certainly want to get across the idea that gays and lesbians are a part of that cultural diversity of the corporation.
Right. Aggie, do you have any experiences among your heterosexual counterparts or colleagues accepting GLCD?
I found an overwhelming acceptance for me personally as I came out in the workplace, and also there seems to be a general acceptance of the existence of this group and the fact that had to happen.
Do you think the group helped you come out, or was a factor in your comfort level or that of others coming out?
I think the March on Washington helped me to come out, and I think helped other people as well. But I know that we repeat consistently at our meetings and in our correspondence that GLCD is about confidentiality. GLCD is not about coming out in the workplace. It's about us feeling comfortable about who we are, and yet every week it seems at every meeting I hear about people who have come out, people who didn't think that who weeks earlier had no intention of coming out. I have to think that the comfort of knowing that there are others coming out in the workplace, and there is a group backing the group, and that the group has been well received is a factor. I truly do.
Nevertheless, the confidentiality is important. How is that handled within GLCD? I guess you have your private voicemail, which is exclusive and
also, everybody has their option as far as the mailing list. You can have mail directed to your home or to your workplace.
So you could get it at home if you felt like you still needed to keep a low profile.
That's right.
And then at the meetings, it's agreed that what happens within this meeting is a confidential.
Right. The attendance in the membership of GLCD is not to be discussed even amongst GLCD members.
Right. Okay. How is GLCD structured? How do you run yourself as an organization?
Well, we have a steering committee, which is composed of the committee chairs, and then we have also a head head of the organization for New York and a head for New England.
Oh, I see. So you have two co-chairs that are in charge of these large regional areas.
In fact, because it's a geographically diverse company and organization, it's in effect two organizations, one in New York and one in New England, but we do keep in touch with each other to set policies together.
Right. And so within that steering committee, there's various subcommittees, is that right?
Yes.
And they handle the different areas of interest. What are some of them?
There's a speakers bureau, ethics.
Let's say labor management, communications, health committee.
Okay, so, and then the heads of each of those committees are on the steering committee?
Correct.
So the leadership comes kind of from the committee level to the larger steering committee. Right.
And there are about 15 members of the steering committee. As Henry said, geographically diverse, so our phone conversations can be pretty loud, long and loud.
You have conference calls?
Yes, that's how we primarily meet, is by via conference call.
Really?
Just like the rest of the company.
Nationally.
So people be in different parts of the country even? Or
of the Northeast. I mean,
right,
NYNEX is the Northeast primarily.
Right. Oh, that's fascinating. Are people dues-paying members once they sign up and get involved? Is there dues or?
So $25 dues.
Okay, and that goes into a general fund. Does the corporation then match funds or contribute in other ways?
The corporation makes funds available for special projects. They do make this voicemail box available to us. The first year of our being, they actually engaged the services of a consultant, and they arranged meetings for us with this consultant to help us actually form the group.
Really? So you had outside a managerial consultant guiding you through the process of creating the group?
As did the other diversity groups. So we were treated like the other diversity groups in that instance.
I see. And then how are funds spent? Where does the monies that you collect through dues and from NYNEX, so you have a little kitty or a little treasury, and then that's used for what sorts of things?
Well, right now it mostly goes for publicity for the events that occur, and we have social events every other month, so it helps to pay for some of that.
Oh, okay. So 6 times a year you don't really meet for business. You meet for
That's right.
for fun. Is that right? And then there's some funds available for that. Has GLCD taken on any other projects? Any sort of social interest projects or political projects outside of NYNEX?
Yes, the membership is very involved in all kinds of arenas, whether it be GMHC or other AIDS-related activities. We have, in the fall, we'll be starting up a pilot mentor project with the Harvey Milk School, which is a school for gay, lesbian, and bisexual young people in New York City. So 5 GLCD members will be mentoring 5 Harvey Milk School people.
Oh, I see. So there'll be a one-on-one relationship, sort of like
yes, kind of an outgrowth of a very strong and well-recognized NYNEX mentoring program with the city schools. Now this is an offshoot or addition in addition to that. I see that. Yeah. And what sort of relationship do they have? Is sort of like a big brother, big sister thing, or helping more in a career sense? Or we're looking toward the Board of Education, working very closely with the New York City Board of Education for guidance. I'm not sure whether it will be one of big sister, big brother, whether it will be assisting with school matters, whether it will be a combination of both.
So that's starting this fall.
This fall.
That's great. Has GLCD been involved politically at all? I guess I'm thinking of the Empire Pride agenda and some other, cohesive political groups in relation to the politics in New York State and other things.
Well, I think one of the, I think it's been a real benefit to the community at large that we are a subgroup that is in good touch with each other, where memos can be distributed and flyers can be distributed, and a lot of networking goes on in terms of the social agenda of New York State and of the country at large.
Right.
I think you'll see some names on the New York Times ad from NYNEX, as well as, of course, our participation in the various marches.
Yeah. Among other corporations, I'm assuming NYNEX is not alone. There are other corporations who have supported their gay and lesbian groups in-house. Is that right?
That's true. There's many other corporations that have.
Are you in touch with them, or is there a way for all of you to talk with each other?
There's an informal network of such groups. We get flyers. We get publications from the other groups. We've had a speaker from the AT&T group came to talk and help inspire us by the progress that they've made.
Right, and then I know the National Gay and Lesbian Task Force had a special workplace conference too, bringing together many of these groups from different companies.
Right, and in this case it's interesting because the employee organizations' interests dovetail with those of the human resources groups, and many of the very large corporations had, even though they may not have domestic partnership benefits, they did have representatives at that and at other conferences addressing employment issues of interest to the gay and lesbian communities.
Right, yeah. There was even a Wall Street project or a study that was done about gay and lesbians in the workplace coming out, and apparently the phone company was at the top of the list for a positive experience for gays and lesbians. Is that right? Yeah, so.
Yeah, I think, as you were saying earlier, Henry, that the high-tech areas lend themselves exceptionally well to the networking of gay and lesbian employees, for example, through email, which can be sometimes done anonymously. And yes, the phone companies and other telecommunications companies have been ripe ground for gay and lesbian employee organizations.
Right. Is there anti-discrimination policy in effect at NYNEX now, so that you were actually, prior to even the creation of GLCD, were protected?
Yes, NYNEX has a formal anti-discrimination policy as part of its equal opportunity statement. They phrase it in terms of affectional orientation, which, as far as I'm concerned, is the same as sexual orientation. That there isn't to be no discrimination on the basis of affectional orientation among all the other categories, such as race, religion, age, disability.
Right. How long has that been in place?
A few years. I don't know exactly.
And that was, I guess, even prior to the Ma Bell breakup, there were a policy in place that...
Those words were not in place, but even going back as far as 1975, the CEO of AT&T at the time stated that he wanted there to be no discrimination against homosexuals in AT&T. It took a while for his ideas to filter down, I think, to the rest of the corporation, but he went on record at the time as saying that.
Yeah, that's
And
quite
at the same
wonderful.
time, he referenced conversations that had taken place between AT&T and the National Gay and Lesbian Task Force. So
I
it
see.
was
So the task force is actually trying to create some action
absolutely.
there. And
Yeah.
it was in response to that,
Yeah.
even in the early 70s. Oh, that's fabulous. What's the biggest issue right now within the company that GLCD is tackling? Is there...
I'd say the biggest issue of concern to us right now is domestic partnership benefits.
Right. So what does that entail? There's no benefits now, right?
That's right. Essentially, as lesbian and gay people, our families are not subject to the same benefits that other employees have. So we would like to see health benefits and pension benefits equal to those available to other employees.
Right, and that would extend to all sorts of things like personal leave or leave for loss of a relative or
Yes.
maternity leave,
Yeah.
things
Union
like
ceremonies.
that. Right. How have the unions worked with you? There's the large unions, the Communication Workers of America
Yes.
and the International Brotherhood of Electrical Workers, is that
That's
right? Right.
The IBEW in their recent negotiations with NYNEX actually did elicit the support of GLCD in a matter affecting pension benefits for gay and lesbian employees. So that
the
was a
unions
very wonderful first step that was taken by the union. We have a union management committee that has been set up in order to establish communications and work on issues of mutual concern with both IBEW and CWA.
Right. Okay. Are there anybody now taking advantage of any benefits? It's just no way to get anything, right?
Well, informally, of course, your supervisor can allow you to take a leave if a loved one dies or if you're going to have some kind of a commitment ceremony. But that's always up to a manager's discretion, I assume. But that's not what I would call a benefit.
Right. It's just something that's sort of gifted or on a personal relationship basis with the manager. It's not something that is granted as a benefit.
That's right.
Just by virtue of being an employee. Is there tax implications to all this too? There's some angle on that, isn't there? That if benefits are given.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting. I mean, one of the concerns of many corporations, including NYNEX, is that these benefits would cost a lot to the corporation.
Right. Of course.
Suddenly, they'd have to pay a lot more benefits, but.
And domestic partners doesn't always mean gay and lesbian either.
That's right. It could.
So it would be someone who is in a live-in situation for an extended period. Yeah.
That's right. And in companies like Levi Strauss and Ben and Jerry's, that's how they've done it. And there are already 70 large companies that have domestic partner benefits, and they found this was in a Wall Street Journal article that fewer than 1% of employees actually end up taking those benefits.
Really, 1% of the people who would be eligible in that category?
No, fewer than 1% of their total pool of employees.
Oh, I see.
For instance, at Lotus, there's 3,000 employees, only 20 have taken the domestic partnership benefits.
Is there any thinking about why that's the case?
Well, as you mentioned, one of the reasons is the tax implications. It is a taxable benefit because the IRS doesn't regard it as a genuine benefit or as a tax-free benefit.
Oh, I see.
So you have to pay tax on it.
If I was an employee and a loved one of mine died, but I got permission to take off and I was paid for those days, it would be taxed as a benefit? Or are you talking about more health benefits?
I think the health benefits, yeah.
Oh, I see. And that would be taxed as income?
Yes.
Ah, okay. Well, the struggle is good. I guess the thing that'll change that is if there's gay and lesbian marriages allowed. In other words, if there's a legal protection there for the partnership.
That's certainly one way that that would make a difference, yeah.
Okay.
For example, in New York State, the benefits that NYNEX offers are governed by New York State law, which defines marriage as being a ceremony between a man and a woman. Should New York State change its definition of a marriage, then NYNEX would go ahead and offer benefits to whatever type of union would fall under the definition, the state definition. However, federally, the IRS has its own definition. So even though I would still, even though under a revised New York State law, NYNEX might grant me benefits, they would still be taxable until the IRS would change its definition of family.
I see.
And that's a national
Well, we're almost out of time. I want to thank you very much for coming.
Thank you.
Could you give your number one more time in case there's people out there in other corporations who could call you and get some clue on how to start a group in their company?
Please feel free to call, and the number is 914-644-6887.
Okay. Well, good luck with all your work. You're a great guest.
Thank you. Thank you, Eileen.
Okay. Thanks for watching Forward and Out. Send your comments to Forward and Out, care of the Loft, P.O. Box 1513, White Plains, New York, 10602. Or call the Loft's helpline at 914-948-4922. Stay tuned for the Loft's Community Bulletin Board directly following the closing credits of the show. Thanks, and until next time, be proud.
Your local Gay and Lesbian Community Services Center is a place to connect and get involved. Various ongoing groups and social events are conducted at or by your center, and it is also a clearinghouse for gay and lesbian information nationwide. We urge you to join, get involved, and support your community.